Welcome to another episode of Voices. I'm your host, Keston Jones. Visionaries offering information with clarity, expertise, and substance. We are content experts. Let your voice be heard. Welcome to another episode of Voices. I'm your host, Keston Jones. And with me, we have another special guest, Miss Aminta Williams. Thank you for being here.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
We've been really trying to get together for a while. You know, I know your schedule is busy, the work that you do, but I'm glad that you really blessed us with your presence today, especially talking about the issue of criminal justice. As you can see, we've had a number of episodes where we talked about criminal justice reform, the need for individuals who have been close to situations to be a part of the solution. And I think that in light of what we're seeing today in the media, what we're seeing today revolved around criminal justice reform, there's a number of things that's happening in the media right now. Meek Mills just got his case got overturned.
Yes.
Shout out to Meek Mills. A$AP Rocky is currently going through a situation where, he's incarcerated overseas. So I think this issue is at the pulse of a lot of Americans, especially those that are marginalized. So, again, great to have you here.
Thanks
How
for
you feeling
having
today?
me. I'm feeling good. I'm glad to be here.
All right. You glad you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
You ready to give the people some information?
Let's do this. Let's do a piece of me.
All right. So without further ado, tell me about yourself, your upbringing, where you're from, and how did that upbringing shape you as a young woman today?
So, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, Crown Heights area. I'm the youngest of four, and I'm a baby girl. And growing up, my mom was being a single parent. Growing up, my mom she had the late night shift. And my sister was like my mom. She was always there. And, it was fun because around the time when I was a young person, I don't know if you guys remember that. Not Facebook, I'm sorry. MySpace.
Yes.
Look at that.
Oh, so are you dating yourself right now? I mean, these young folks don't know about MySpace now.
Yeah, they don't know about it. They don't know. I am. I know I look young, but MySpace was just launching around that time, but I had the opportunity to do, go outside and play and have, that youthful experience that nowadays I think the young people don't have that they really need because they're so attached to the social media. And being the youngest, and my mom working that late night shift, my sister she was always there. She was like my mom. And when she went away to college, that's when it all happened, right? That's when it all happened. We'll get there, I guess, later on.
Oh, okay. Okay. I feel like you just told us about a chapter in a book.
I want to say that's when I started, getting with the wrong crowd and, I got involved in the criminal justice system. Around that time.
Okay. And currently, you're working in the criminal justice system.
I am.
As a program coordinator for a nonprofit that works with youth in Rikers Island, Horizon, and a number of other places. What led you to wanting to get involved in that type of work, but specifically working with youth?
So, again, when I was younger, I got involved in the criminal justice system. I was about 16 years old. And, I made a mistake. And I was sentenced to a not-for-profit program called V.O.I.C.E.S. And I built they shaped my life in so many different ways. I actually was employed with them for about 13 years on and off before I went on to do what I do now. As I was a program assistant, I was a case coordinator there. I had so many different hats and so many different levels when working there. But it started off when I was 16, sentenced to 5 years probations, and I got a felony. I was sentenced to a felony. I didn't get Y.O. For those of you who don't know what Y.O. is, Y.O. is called as a youth for offender status. It means that your record will be sealed.
Yes.
So for me, I didn't get that at the age of 16. So then fast forward, I'm still trying to strive to become a woman that I am today, still striving, 20 years old with a newborn baby, trying to get into housing, trying to get into employment, and I'm getting, the doors are closing left and right,
So you mentioned having a Y.O. and especially with youth that are 16, that are very young, it's usually something that's a given in many cases, unless it's a extremely violent case. Is there a likelihood of individuals that are people of color that may not get Y.O. versus individuals that are not? Do you feel that it had something to do with that, or?
For me, I feel like my case wasn't that to the point, it wasn't that severe to the point they should have offered it to me or let me know about it. I didn't know about it until after I was sentenced. I didn't learn about a lot of things until after I was sentenced. Mm-hmm. And that can be the case, but for me, I think that my lawyer and the people that I was aligned with going through this process really didn't support me and educate me on what I can do and what the not do's to do, and it was just like, get this case over with, and now I'm sitting here with this felony forever, and and I'm still striving. I want to say 43 years ago, I applied for a second job, and they hired me. And I was on my first day of training. I was working with mentally disabled old adults, and they were training me to do the paperwork. I was completely honest with them about who I was, where I came from, and they knew about my background. And the supervisor on the shift came in and said, "You have to leave." And for me, I'm like, "Why?" "Well, you knew." She's like, "I know, but our higher ups, they said that, they're not interested." So that was just about 3-4 years ago. And for me, to this day, it's still happening, and if I had that Y.O., if a lot of young people know that it even exists, if I had known it exists to even try to get it, I feel like things would have been a little bit different.
You speak about a reality that many folks who are formerly incarcerated, who are returning citizens, have to deal with, where they have paid their debt to society. They've done programs, have shown levels of moving on past the crime. However, felony convictions and these rap sheets often place people in a situation where they constantly have to revisit this trauma, and it's very trauma inducing for people who want to get on with their lives, want to be a contributing member of society. However, this past conviction or this past error in discretion or error in judgment may cause this to be reoccurring often.
Right.
So hats off to you persevering and finding different levels of employment, and now you're a coordinator of a program. Can you talk more about your role as a coordinator? What are some of the things that you do, that you're tasked with as the dare I say, the boss that you are?
I wouldn't say that, but I just want to go back a little bit.
Okay,
I'm
please.
sorry.
Yes.
I just want to go back a little
Please.
bit. As I came from the other position and transferring into this position, for about those 13 years, I was working with the young people for the reentry part, coming back into society. So this was a new transition, going in and meeting them there, and then when they come out, we're still servicing them there. So that was a big deal for me. Like, now I can go in. I go into the housing area. So basically, my role, what I do is I recruit programs all over New York City, ranging from entrepreneurship, ranging from cooking, teaching them how to do the animation, digital, you name it. Giving them something tangible, something that they can use when they come back into the society of interest to keep them going and motivated. And when going into the housing areas, these programs, they go into the housing areas and they meet them where they at. So they just get out of bed, and then they come into this community area where all the young people come together, and they do these workshops with them, right? And the good thing about it, that's even some of the programs that we have, when they come home, they give them jobs, right? And for me, in my role, is so important because with Horizons, going into Horizons, and having that front row seat to the young people going into Horizon from Rikers.
Can you talk about Horizon and explain for those that aren't aware of what kind of facility Horizons is? Is there an age group involved in being quote unquote sentenced to Horizon, or in housing Horizons?
So Horizons is a juvenile detention center in Brooklyn. They also have a Crossroads juvenile detention center in the Bronx. They have Crossroads in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And they house young people between the ages 16 and 17.
Okay.
Now Horizons, when they did the Raise the Age move, Horizons is where they put the 16 and 17-year-olds. And that's when I speak about having that front row seat of the Raise the Age move and seeing them come from Rikers to Horizons, and the young people there, the programming, me being the program coordinator, I have to go there and assess the programming, right? What do you like? What do you don't like? What do you like about this program? What do you want? And I have to go around and recruit programs to their liking. And I had this one house that wrote us a letter. It was about, I want to say, 16 to 17 young men in there. That's in the range of 16 to 17 years old. And they wrote a letter to us, letting us know the programs that they liked, the programs they dislike, and why they didn't like them, and what they want more of. And that effort, the fact that they came together and they wrote the letter, they all signed their names. One wrote the letter, and the one, he wrote all their thoughts, and they all signed it. And I gave them all the programs they wanted, because it's hard sometimes with the schedules. And we gave them all the programs they wanted, and they were so excited about it. And the rate for them getting in trouble, and they have levels. So they have level 1, level 2, level 3, and they constantly was on level 3 due to having these programs. So that's the beauty of my role in having that and having to be in this position.
Watching the transformation,
right?
Especially as someone who was the same age and involved in the system in some shape or form. I'm sure it's very just rewarding on your part to just be a part of this change that they're currently going through.
Right.
You mentioned something earlier in terms of not being aware, not having proper representation. In light of a lot of things that have happened in the media. One of the things that just happened in the last few months was the premiere of a movie on Netflix, and this movie is called When They See Us, because when it comes to the criminal justice system, there's many people who are not being seen. Many people, black and brown individuals, that are just being housed in these Rikers Island buses, going to and fro to Rikers Island and court in the middle of the night. And many people in society aren't aware of what's happening, the stories that are happening, the pain and suffering that's happening. How do you feel about this particular movie and the message in this movie, especially as it relates to lack of representation in court?
So for me, it hit home. It hit home. I thought it was very important to watch it with my 13-year-old daughter. When I watched the movie, I was angry, I was sad, I was crying, all these emotions. And I think for most people, the fourth part, the choreographed part, which was so, touching, I can relate to him on so many different levels, having been 16 and on Rikers Island. And having to see his friends, that part where he said, well, all I know is that I'm here and they're there, not really knowing. When I watched it with my daughter, she had questions for me, and I think 13 is a very important age, right? For them to know their rights, know what's going on, what can happen, what can't happen, to be aware. And I had, one of the things with the young people that I really feel, you have to be completely honest with them. A lot of time parents, they tend to sugarcoat things. They don't want them to see this. They don't want them to know about that. But now in this age, 2019 and going forward, like, you cannot. You have to.
I mean, you mentioned MySpace.
Yeah.
These kids now have Facebook,
exactly.
Instagram, Snapchat.
They see everything.
They see everything,
right? So when watching that movie with my daughter, I realized what really impacted me was knowing them not knowing their rights, not knowing, seeing the mother of Yusuf, going into that room and saying you can't do this, and then the other parents not really knowing which way to go, the young people not knowing, which way to go. Shortly after watching that Netflix series, I was asked to go to a school and do a Know Your Rights training. But before they asked me that, while watching the movie, I was just like, I want to do something with parents and young people where they should know their rights. Because this is exactly why. Yeah. This is exactly the reason why maybe. And I titled the Know Your Rights training, Knowing Your Rights Can Change Your Life. Right? And it's true, because had they known their rights, their life would have been probably a little bit different.
Absolutely. Those 5 young men who are now grown men, we used to, they used to be referred to in the media as the Central Park 5, but this is the exonerated 5. These young men did not do this crime, and thanks to DNA evidence and so on and so forth, this was proven. But oftentimes we don't have the machine behind us to help support us through these dark passages and these dark times that we are going through. You mentioned earlier that you're a mother. How, in light of the work that you do, you have a 13-year-old. In light of being a mother in this era of being aware, being woke, so to speak, how does your role, your past, and the things that you currently go through affect your ability as a mother? And not to say affected any which way, but what does it do and how does it impact you and support you in this role?
So for me, pretty much, I am a professional. Yeah. And when my previous position, I went to the homes and I worked with the family and the young people 15 and under, who are in the system. And being a mom and coming home to my young ones, and I could see it from 2 different angles. For one, for the young person, I think that a lot of parents don't listen because they're young. Yeah. They feel like they don't know it all. Like, for example, and I found myself doing it as a parent too, but then I had a reality check when doing what I'm doing. I'm looking at it from another side, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is what needs to be done. Hearing them out, just looking at it from different angles, from the parent's perspective and the young person's perspective. Because being a case manager, when I was a case manager, me doing that work and social work, you have to put yourself, that's what I did. I put myself in their shoes because they are me. I put myself in their shoes, and I remember, and I try to see where is it coming from, right? Yeah. Where is the miscommunication, right? What are you lacking? What's your parents like? Looking from the outside, and because oftentimes when you can't see that, right? Yeah. So for the young person, for example, a parent can say, a young person could say, hey, Mom, Dad, can I do X, Y, Z? And you're like, no. And they're like, why? And you're like, because I said so, right?
But I've heard that before.
I've said it before. I heard it before, and that's where I get it from. Yeah. But then that's when I say I take a step back. No, they don't know. That's why they're asking why, right? It's because I said so. And then oftentimes when you tell them not to do something, they want to do it anyway, right? So as a parent, you have to sit there and be completely honest. I say it again, I can't say it enough times. And, try not to sugarcoat things and let them know this is what it is, because this is real life. Yeah. And they're going to step into that real life world. So you have to do that. For the parents, I know it's very stressful. Yeah. You have bills. You're trying to keep everything afloat. You're trying to make sure that they're getting everything that they need, but then you're getting pushback from them. It could be you're a human being at the end of the day. There's but so much you can take. Mm-hmm. But one thing I can say is do not give up. Do not give up on your young people, and that's how it affects me. When being a parent, I could look at it from so many different angles. Sometimes I'm not gonna lie, I find myself with my daughter, and I'm like, I get frustrated, and I say something like because I said so.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no, baby, let me explain.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a conversation about it. She's like, well, Mom, maybe you should trust me, blah, blah, blah. And, we'll have that dialogue and start building from there. And then that's when the miscommunication, you'll see you won't have that because you're communicating.
Yeah, I mean, in working with young folks, especially doing the fatherhood work, we often hear parents, at their wits' end, not being able to communicate with their child. But oftentimes, some of the parents aren't willing to even communicate with their child. I remember being a young man, growing up in Crown Heights as well. Shout out to Crown Heights. Where, I was in elementary school, and it was such a kid who would just be happy about answering questions in school, and I didn't have this fear of violence around me as a child in elementary school. But I distinctly remember going into junior high school and being exposed to bullies and gangs, and my attitude changed. It was I kind of withdrew from the learning environment in the same way because stress levels were up. And I don't think my mother, who I also grew up in a single parent household, I don't think my mother understood what was happening to me in the streets, but rather it was the outcome. Okay, you're getting a bad grade, or you're not doing this, you're not doing that, but not really understanding the process.
Right.
What's happening in between to cause this change. And I think that it's important for parents to really listen to their children, because our kids are speaking a totally different language. And some of us used to be, we thought shorthand text messages was big, and when we would get, these kids are just totally at a totally different level, Snapchat and all these other things. And it's important for parents to become aware of what's changing. So you're absolutely right. This movie, this series, I should say, and shout out to the director Ava DuVernay and the work that she's been doing. 13 and other projects that she's been working on, really shedding light on what's happening in the city on so many levels. So this was triggering for me as well. So especially in light of the work that both of us are doing. So I would hope that not only people of color watch that film, watch the series, because for us, we already know this reality.
Right.
We want people who aren't from our communities, who are saying what's wrong with those guys, or what are they doing wrong, to see this, to get a better understanding of what happens to our kids when they enter the criminal justice system and are being questioned and all these other things, and how maybe top charges will automatically be levied against them, whereas somebody else is like, oh, that's just a trespassing charge or something like that. So this is what happens to our children in these areas. So, shout out, kudos to you for your work, and in taking your work to a step further and talking about your role as a woman involved in the criminal justice system. How does that play into this? So how do you feel being a woman in the criminal justice arena? And the second part is, what are some of the issues specific to women who are involved as far as who are incarcerated in these other areas?
I'm gonna answer that question. I'm gonna answer the second part first.
Okay.
When I go into these detention centers, or Rikers Island, in one of the detention centers, there's 10 halls, right? And only one hall is for a female. The rest, so predominantly it's males, right? And in that one hall, there's like 2 or 3 females, right? Fast forward, let's go to Rikers. We have all these facilities. We have about several facilities. And there's one facility for the women there. So that goes to show you the population. And I feel like most of the time, for the young women who are incarcerated, sometimes we're overlooked.
Yeah.
We're overlooked. And there's not enough programs or, support there for us there, being that we're being overlooked. That's just my personal feeling based on my experience and on what I've seen. There is a program, I'm going to say this, there's a program on Rikers Island for mothers. Okay. And there's a daycare where they can help them when they have the young person, when they have the child. And the requirements are here to get into this program. They know most of the people who are, the young ladies who are incarcerated, they don't have X and Z, right? So they can't get there. So they make it harder. So that's one of the things that, I've seen in working on Rikers Island, especially with our young ladies being overlooked, that I think that they should do better at. Like, bring that criteria down. I don't know what it is they have to do, but just bring it down a little, because they don't have access. They have limited access. By the time they come home, their child is in custody, and it's really hard to get them back, right? So it's like, well, I'm incarcerated, I made a mistake, or whatever the case may be. But when I get home, I want to get my kid get back on my feet. I had a court date, but I wasn't able to make that court date because I was incarcerated. So technically it really wasn't, there's nothing I could really do about that. So you have to create a system where they can meet them halfway, especially when they're trying to, level up and do whatever it is that they need to do to get back on their feet. They just make it a little bit harder. Yeah. So those two things. And, the other half of your question is, me being a woman of color and in the criminal justice system, I love to see that. I love to see, women like myself, to see that we're strong and we're sticking together. And oftentimes, we have to just fix our crown a little bit, right? Fix our crowns. And I like to see people like myself in the same industry, like, well, I'm doing this, sis. Let's do this. Let's fix your crown, So I love the fact, that's one of the main reasons why I'm here, right? Because I don't think it's enough of us. Because when we do speak, we have to speak loud, and we have to say, we're here, and we're here for each other, So that's how I look at it.
Well, listen, shout out again to the work that you're doing. And it's important for all voices to be elevated. That's why this show was created, for individuals to share their part in how this system and how various systems affect them. And I know it's certainly different for women. And talking about like the visiting rooms, where a male visiting room may be packed to capacity, where people are going to visit, women are going to visit their husbands. But on the flip side, men visiting women who are incarcerated, you don't see that. I routinely hear from guards in different places that, like, the women's facility, the visiting room is very scarce. It's not a lot of people in there. So we need more support for women in this area as well, because they are impacted by this system in various ways. It's all affecting our communities differently. So you mentioned certain things that you would like to change. Certain things like, making the threshold to get in the program to lower it somewhat. What are some other things that you would like to change about the criminal justice system policies? You mentioned raise the age, which was a great policy, and those the young folks were taken off the island and sent to Horizon and other places and provided with more program hours. There was a recent, policy that was passed called the First Step Act. What are some other things that you would like to see change?
So the policy was the First Step Act with the Raise the Age, right?
Yeah.
You mean the first implementation of the Raise the Age? What I would have changed about that, was very heartbroken, was so they moved the 16 and 17-year-olds to Horizons. As soon as that 17-year-old turned 18, he was moved back to Rikers.
Yeah.
Right. If you're in the system, and I think that was the first step, because come October 19, what I'm hearing is that once you're there, you can be there up until, I think it's 21.
Yeah. So
you're not going to be moved back to Rikers, which is good. But I think that when that first step, when they did that implementation, that's one of the things I would have changed. Also, I just would like to see more support, right? Yeah. I think I myself, for over a decade, I myself took part in the Raise the Age, whether going to campaigns, talking to people, getting my story out there. And, so I've been a fan of Raise the Age. So I'm happy that it passed, but it's a lot of work that we need to do. It's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I would like to see is for it to be done more retroactively as well, because there's a lot of people who have been sentenced under old policies, and had this policy been in place, they would certainly not have received the time that they received. And you got individuals, up there, in the mountains in different facilities, doing 25 to life and other things under these policies where they were 16 years old. So these are some of the things I would like to add to as well.
So for me, I want to compliment you on that, because what you're saying on that, because for me, I'm smiling because I'm very hopeful that it would happen.
Okay.
So, one of my attorneys I've been working with from the time I was 16, she's been really working with the Raise the Age law, the passing, and that's who I've been working with. And she said to me, 10 years, 12 years from now, when this law is passed, and now is the time, she's like, maybe we can get that felony off your record, right? So I don't want to speak too fast, but I feel like, it's in the process, they're going through the last stages, and due to the fact that this is, being implemented, they said it's going to be very hard, but I'm very hopeful that they can get this felony a sponge and get me that YO status due to the Raise the Age. Absolutely. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
Absolutely, I'm hopeful for that, and I'm hopeful for other things. But you again, thank you for being on the show, and you're doing wonderful work throughout the community, with working with our youth. What are some of the things that you're currently working on, whether it be personally or professionally, that you would like to share?
One of the things I'm working on is I'm working on a project. The name of the project is called Triple F's.
Okay.
The F's stands for Flowers Fearlessly Flourishing.
Okay.
Okay. Now, it was inspired by the felony that I had, because it's for me, it stopped my life, right? I felt like when I walked into a room, I had this flaming F on my chest, and everybody knew, and then the minute they saw it, it was like, the door was slammed in my face, and I wasn't hopeful. So the reason for this project is for awareness, for all of our young people, parents, Black and brown people, to be aware of what's going on, educate them, give them resources, and start it off like that. So look out for Triple F's.
Okay.
And that's Flowers Fearlessly Flourishing, right? Because I feel like I'm that flower that fearlessly flourishes, because I want all the young people, don't get discouraged, because, at one point I was discouraged, and then next thing you know, I just blossomed into this flower fearlessly, because nobody can't tell me I can't do.
Okay.
I got a lot of can and I can't do it, and I did it, and just flourish. So that's what the Triple F's are going to be about.
Absolutely.
So look out for the Triple F's.
So we'll be looking forward and looking out for the Triple F's. Again, it's copywritten. This is Aminta's product, but please look out for that project. And would you like to leave the audience with any last words of encouragement, or just in general? Please feel free to direct it to the audience.
So I want to say, first, thank you for having me and hearing me out, to you and your audience. Just stay in the game. Stay together. We have to stay together in order to make this happen. And time is ticking, and we're not done yet. It's happening, the Raise the Age, we're not done yet. That's what I want to say. Okay. We're not done yet.
Well, okay? You're definitely not done. But unfortunately, we're done today with this interview. We're really happy to have you on this show. And, once again, this has been another episode of Voices. What are your thoughts on Raise the Age? What are your thoughts on some of these policies that we've discussed today? What are your thoughts on women leading the charge and being a voice for those that are voiceless, a voice for women who are incarcerated, youth that are incarcerated, and people in general? We come from women, so it's very important that women are a part of, turning us into those flowers that fearlessly flourish.
Yes.
So this has been another episode of Voices. I'm your host, Keston Jones. Peace.
Bye.